No one wishes to find themselves caught in a whirlwind of life's trials, but the reality is that sooner or later, each of us will face the inevitable. Illnesses may knock on the door, divorce, like a bolt from the blue, will strike a family, with a probability of about 50%. The loss of loved ones, with a sad probability of 70%, will leave an unhealed wound in the heart. Old age, if one is destined to live that long, will creep up unnoticed, and in the finale of life's journey, everyone awaits an inevitable meeting with death. But the main question is not how to avoid these events, but how to face them with dignity. Life experience shows that we are not immune to many of fate's blows. However, a wise person does not give up, but looks for ways to overcome difficulties. One can, of course, close one's eyes to problems, hoping that they will pass by, but sooner or later one will have to face the consequences, and then one can only endure or break under their weight. Society often accepts such an outcome as a matter of course. The loss of a job, leading to tragedy or inconsolable grief. Breaking a person after the death of loved ones are perceived as a sad but inevitable norm. However, if you look at the situation from a different angle, you can see other ways to overcome difficulties. Awareness of this does not come immediately and requires considerable effort, but even the first steps in this direction will bear fruit that will exceed all expectations. By thinking about this in advance, or already being in the epicenter of life's trials, one can come to an understanding of the Four Noble Truths discovered by Buddha. What are these truths that can transform our perception of suffering and point the way to liberation? The answer to this question awaits those who are ready to embark on an exciting journey of self-discovery and spiritual growth. In Buddhist philosophy, the cornerstone of understanding the world is the fundamental truth about the existence of suffering, the all-pervading reality of human existence. Siddhartha Gautama, known as the Buddha, proclaimed, "Truly, my brothers, there is a noble truth about suffering. From the moment of birth until his last days, man is subject to suffering. The torments of birth are replaced by the hardships of aging. Diseases torment the body, and death brings unspeakable pain. Grief and lamentation, physical pain and mental despondency, despair and hopelessness, all this weighs heavily on the shoulders of man. Union with someone who is not dear to the heart causes suffering, separation from loved ones and relatives, unbearable pain, and the unquenchable thirst for desires becomes a source of endless torment." Recognition of this harsh reality can be unpleasant and even repulsive to modern man, accustomed to comfort and entertainment. It is natural to want to shut oneself off from negative thoughts and switch to something more positive and joyful. However, how long can one avoid this unpleasant truth? Suffering will haunt a person again and again, until he or she musters the courage to look reality in the face and acknowledge the existence of suffering. It is important to emphasize that Buddhism is by no means a gloomy and pessimistic philosophy. On the contrary, it is entirely devoted to the search for happiness and ways to achieve it. However, before you can start moving towards happiness, you must honestly acknowledge the presence of unhappiness. Look reality in the eye. Reflecting on this, a person begins to notice manifestations of suffering, the so-called dukkha, even in the most insignificant things. After all, even what we usually consider good often turns out to be just a temporary fluctuation, a fleeting state that already contains the seed of not good. But this is a more subtle level of perception. Therefore, it is worth starting with the most obvious and frank kind of suffering, in order to then move on to a deeper understanding of its nature. At the very heart of human suffering lies not external influence, but an internal state of attachment. Buddha taught that the root of suffering is in craving, in the unquenchable desire for existence and equally for non-existence. It is important to realize when a person is obsessed with the desire for something to be, or conversely, for something not to be. When he clings to these aspirations, it is this attachment that becomes the source of an endless chain of suffering, even in small things. We are able to learn to free ourselves from this tenacious grip. Take, for example, an ordinary thing, a mug, a simple white mug belonging to someone. If something happens to it, it breaks or gets lost, the person will not experience strong grief. While it is there, you can enjoy its convenience and functionality, experiencing quite earthly pleasure from owning it. But when it is gone, there will be no deep upset, because there is no strong attachment to it. However, the more beautiful, expensive, and valuable the object, the more difficult it becomes to let go of this attachment. The ability to own, act, enjoy, without allowing oneself to become overly attached, is a true art. Progressing in this art beyond simple objects is a difficult but quite feasible task. The essence is that a person loses nothing. They can still enjoy all the pleasures of life but remain free from their power. In the cycle of life, every person is beset by 8 worldly harms, 8 temptations capable of clouding existence. Enthusiastic praise and scathing criticism, joyful news and sad tidings, gains and losses, ups and downs. One might ask, is it possible to remain unmoved in the face of these inevitable life vicissitudes? Is it permissible to strive for financial well-being, to work diligently for prosperity, but not allow material possessions to enslave the soul? Can one enjoy well-deserved praise and a good reputation, yet remain calm when public opinion shifts, and yesterday's triumphant figure becomes an object of reproach? Is it possible not to cling to fleeting recognition, not to be tormented by the fickleness of public opinion? Can one enter into marriage, experience the joy of intimacy with a loved one, but be prepared for the fact that sooner or later separation will occur, whether through parting, death, or simply departure? Is it possible not to indulge in inconsolable grief, realizing that nothing lasts forever under the moon? Is it permissible to enthusiastically build something, whether it be a house, a career, or a work of art, enjoying each stage of creation and rejoicing in the final result, but remaining calm when what has been created collapses under the pressure of circumstances? Is it possible not to fall into despair, understanding that everything in this world is subject to destruction? Can one be a parent, selflessly love one's child, but be prepared for the day when the grown-up child leaves the parental home to build their own life? Is it possible not to experience the pain of separation, recognizing that this is the natural course of things? Is it possible to achieve a state of being, action, and life without experiencing a painful attachment to one's own self? How not to succumb to despair when the physical body begins to wither under the burden of illness, old age, and ultimately death, if there is no excessive dependence on the ephemeral self? The last and most difficult barrier on the path to liberation is our very own self. Overcoming it is impossible without realizing the true nature of this self, without comprehending selflessness. Mere willpower is powerless here. A breakthrough is only possible through direct knowledge. A person knows with certainty about the existence of gravity, but does he possess an equally clear understanding of the root of suffering and the nature of his self? It is this ignorance that creates that glass wall, transparent but insurmountable. Through it, one can glimpse something greater, but penetrating beyond its limits is not so easy. Behind this wall lies absolute freedom and unwavering, independent happiness. Buddha asserted that achieving this state is real, and it is enshrined in the noble truth of the cessation of suffering, in the complete fading away and cessation of craving, in abandoning and discarding it, in liberation from it, and in having no reliance on it. There is a path that allows one to overcome this glass wall, a path to absolute freedom. Buddha points to it in the noble truth of the path leading to the cessation of suffering. It is the famous Noble Eightfold Path. By embarking on this path, everyone can move forward, and gradually, as excessive attachment weakens, suffering will recede, just as darkness dissipates with the appearance of light. When beginning to free oneself from the shackles of attachments, one should start small, with a simple object, such as an ordinary mug, to gradually realize the interconnectedness of all things in the world. Until a person is ready to let go, they will continue to enjoy fleeting pleasures, whether material possessions or momentary delights, while they are still available. They will cling to the present, seeking to preserve what they have and continue their habitual way of life. However, by letting go of attachments, a person loses nothing truly valuable. On the contrary, they get rid of suffering, of the unnecessary burden that they have placed upon themselves. Not a single precious grain of experience will be lost. If there is a feeling of an impending loss of something important, this indicates a misunderstanding of fundamental truths, that the root of the problem has not been recognized, and the entire system of the universe remains unclear. In such a case, it is necessary to return to the beginning and once again go through all the stages of the Eightfold Path, delving into the understanding of the Four Noble Truths, time and time again. That is why this process is called practice, because with each new turn of the spiral of knowledge, reality appears more clearly, and actions become more conscious. A person can constantly improve their skills, becoming more and more free and happy on the path to ultimate liberation from suffering.